going on, you guys? Nick here with Nick Strength and Power, and this video is going to be the Tampa Pro preview video. We're going to go over all the recent updates from some of the guys that I think are going to be at the top of this Tampa Pro lineup, starting with Jon De La Rosa. Jon is one of the guys that I've been seeing his updates lately posted by him and his coach, Patrick Tour, that I've been most impressed by as far as his conditioning. He looks like he's in tremendous shape, and I saw that his coach said that he's actually weighing 240 pounds, which is bigger than I thought, and that was before carbing up. This is while he was still, very flat in this back double bicep video. Because Jon's a shorter guy. I believe he's 5'6" or 5'5", so 240, while it might not sound that big, I think for him, being depleted, 240 is pretty good size. And he's a guy that's got a pretty good track record going into this. Last year at the Tampa Pro, he was second. Last year at the Chicago Pro, he was also second. And in Chicago, he lost to Justin Shire. And then in Tampa, he lost to Hunter Labrada. So two Olympia qualified bodybuilders, Hunter Labrada being a really good one, are the only guys that beat Jon last year. So he's in a pretty good position here, obviously, considering that neither of those guys are in the Tampa Pro this year. There are some guys that competed in the Tampa Pro last year that Jon beat last year. There's also guys that weren't in the Tampa Pro. So Jon is a guy that I'm looking at right now as a potential favorite to win. Of course, we're going to talk about Fooda, who just won the Chicago Pro. But right now, I wanted to start the video out with Jon in his updates because they really have impressed me the most. He's one of the guys that, over these past however many shows now, 6, 7, 8 shows, you've seen a lot of these guys that are in this lineup do all these recent shows. We haven't seen Jon do any of those shows this season. So we're going to be talking about some of these other guys that we've seen a lot already this season. But Jon's one of these guys that we might not be talking about as much because we haven't seen him compete 2, 3, 4 times. Some of these guys 6 times this season. Speaking of which, Tim Budeshiem, this will be his 6th show this competitive season. His recent impressive placings, obviously being 2nd in Vancouver to John Jewett and 3rd in Chicago behind Vlad Sukaruchko and Fooda. Tim Budeshiem has posted several updates over the past couple days. We've talked about this a lot with Tim going into these shows that, he looks really impressive on Instagram. His conditioning always looks good. He's a really big bodybuilder, maybe not the most aesthetic guy, maybe not the best V-taper, a little bit of a wide waist, but overall, he's actually really consistent. He comes in big, he comes in relatively full, and he's pretty consistently well-conditioned, at least the past several shows that we've seen him at. He's been a top guy at almost all of them, I would say, except for maybe New York, where he was a little bit out of the mix there. And I don't want to count Tim out completely, even though you've got Vlad Sukaruchko and Fooda in this lineup, who both beat him in Chicago. Because like I said, this is Tim's 6th show this season. And I feel like he's just such a hard-working bodybuilder's bodybuilder. He comes in shape. He comes in big. He does all these shows. He's trying to win one and qualify for the Olympia. I would like to see him win a show just off the merit of he's actually being a pro. He's a guy that can't just come in and easily win one show necessarily. So he's really working at this and constantly prepping, constantly competing with the goal of getting to the Olympia. And the fact that this will be his 6th show this season, I think just makes me want to root for him. I mean, that's a lot of work. Think of some of the bodybuilders at the top of the sport that are making the most money, especially the ones that are like already qualified for the Olympia and don't even have to compete to qualify. Or a lot of the guys that are top guys that just compete once, relatively easily win the show, or just expectedly maybe win that show, and then they're going to the Olympia. They don't really have to worry and do 6, maybe 7 shows like, Tim might, because you got Texas next weekend. I'm sure if he doesn't win here, he'll probably go ahead and go to Texas as well. And I respect that. That's a professional bodybuilder. His job is to compete in these shows. And that's a hell of a lot of shows, man. And I think before we get into the other guys, we probably should run through this competitor list one more time because there's so many names here. So we've got Louis Breed, Tim Budeshiem, Christian Caldwell, Yi Shang Chen, Phil Clahar, Alfonso Cromartie, Jon De La Rosa, Fooda, Dorian Haywood, Jordan Hutchinson, Hamza Jawad, You've also got Charlie Young, Rico Lara Rivas, Jason May, An Nguyen, Felix Norman, Sarhan, who we also just saw in Chicago. He got 7th. Nate Spear, Vlad Sukaruchko, Mariusz Tomzuk, and Eric Wood. So a lot of guys in this lineup. This is going to be an interesting one, and some guys that we haven't seen yet this season, a la Jon De La Rosa. Now, next is Mo Fooda. So Mo Fooda, we actually haven't gotten a physique update from since the Chicago Pro, which he won in very impressive fashion. He's got a very unique structure. We found out after that show that he's actually working with Stefan, boss of Outlaw, who has had one of the most successful seasons, especially if you're talking outside of the Olympia as a coach. He's been really like the top guy between Nathan and Bonac and Martin Fitzwater, Wesley Vissers, Urs Kalsinski, and I'm sure I'm leaving a ton of people out, but he has had a very impressive run this season. So the fact that Mo won his first ever pro show working with Stefan, and I believe in his post-win interview, he said that it was kind of a last-minute thing that he started working with Stefan, because I think he said he was going to quit his prep and he was about to pull out. And then I think he linked up with Stefan towards the end of his prep when he, started back again. But the fact that he's working with Stefan, I feel like almost gives him a little bit of an edge. And like I said, no recent physique updates from him, but we do have this check-in picture of him in Tampa, so he is there, he is competing. And like I said, very impressive in Chicago, and he's got a very unique structure. Frankly, I do think he's got a really good shot at winning this show as well. Even though Chicago was his first ever professional win, I think he looked great. And we don't have any physique updates from Vlad either. Vlad was second in Chicago to Mo, so he's probably going to be a top 3 guy here, I would assume. Honestly, my top 3 really is, in no particular order, Jon De La Rosa, Mo Fooda, and Vlad Sukaruchko, even though we haven't seen any updates from Vlad. Before Chicago, when I talked to Vlad last, he told me a few days out of Chicago he was going to stop posting updates and just compete. So I guess that also applies to this show, and then maybe he jumps into Texas as well if he doesn't win here. But I was actually very impressed with Vlad at the Chicago show, even though he doesn't have the prettiest physique or prettiest structure. He's big, he was conditioned, not the most best midsection, but he was impressive. And another guy I want to talk about here is another guy that hasn't been competing in all these shows that we've been watching, and that is Louis Breed. I saw these updates from him. I believe these were from yesterday, so these will be 3 days out. He was actually 3rd at last year's Tampa Pro, and he was 4th at last year's Texas Pro. So I'm assuming there's a chance maybe he also does both those shows again this year because they're so close. But his updates, this guy looks really impressive. He looks really conditioned, big, full. He looks pretty crazy to me, and I have no idea how he's going to fare in this lineup. It's a little bit easier to say with some of these other guys that we've seen compete against each other recently. But Lewis, he looks really impressive in these updates. He really stood out to me of a lot of these guys that I was looking through in preparation for this video. His updates really stood out. And I wouldn't be surprised if he's in that mix of that first call out, that top 3 or 4 guys. I'm thinking for the first call out, you're going to have John, Lewis, Tim Budeshiem, Mo Fooda, Vlad Sukaruchko, that's 5. And then 6, I would say, and I'm not saying that's their placing. Oh, yeah, Jordan Hutchinson. We just saw him in Chicago, where he looked pretty impressive there. He was 5th place in Chicago. And I was looking at his updates today, and he looks, I think, better than he looked in a lot of the updates going into Chicago. He looks a little bit leaner, a little bit more detailed. Especially, I was looking at his quads. He's got the cross striations going in the quads. I think he's a guy that'll probably end up being in the mix here in the Tampa show. But yeah, those would be my picks for the guys that I think will be in the top 6, the guys that I think will probably be in the first call-out. Jordan, Tim, Lewis, John, Vlad, and Mo Fooda. I think likely for the win, it's going to be between John, Vlad, and Mo. Potentially, I feel like there could be a top 2 call-out of John and Mo Fooda. because I think their physiques are a little bit more similar and a little bit more comparable than Mo and Vlad. But we'll see what happens. Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. What are your predictions for the 2024 Tampa Pro, which will be open bodybuilding will be Saturday, so this is not a Sunday show. I know a lot of these shows have kind of fluctuated the date and time and day of the week. But this one will be a normal Saturday show that we're used to, morning prejudging Saturday night show. So yeah, let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel, click that bell notification icon if you have not already. And as always, I love you guys. Appreciate you guys. Nick Strength and Power signing out. All right, guys, don't forget to click that like button and subscribe to this channel if you enjoy the content. Also, check out my Instagram at NICKS&P. My Facebook page, which is simply Nick Strength and Power. My secondary YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Vlogs, for vlogs and bonus content that you will not see on this channel. And consider subscribing to my third YouTube channel, Nick Strength and Pokemon, which is all things Pokemon and trading card games, completely unrelated to this channel. So if you're into that, give that one a look. And all links to merchandise and social media will be in the description box below. If you guys want a Nick Strength and Power t-shirt, that will be in the Shopify link below. Have a great day.